Good morning. Today we finish the book of Second Chronicles, chapters 34 through 36, and we begin with the reign of King Josiah, who was 8 years old when he began to reign. And, when I look at that, I think he must be fortunate to have some good advisors, because it says that, he did what was right in the sight of the Lord. He didn't go to the left or to the right. He followed the word of the Lord. And when he was in his 8th year of his reign, when he was 16, it says that he began to seek the God of his ancestor David. So even, those 8 years that he was reigning as king, while he was following the laws of God and following it, maybe following his father's footsteps, but then he began to seek God. And as he began to seek God and a closer relationship with God, he realized that there was an awful lot of false worship going on, worshiping false gods. And he went around first, in Jerusalem and close by, and took down the sacred poles and the idols of Baal and all of these other, the high places of worship and, the ceremonial places of worship of false gods. And I'm sure that, that didn't go over real well with a lot of the people, because they were used to, these procedures and this process, and they were used to doing what they did, in their worship. And it's, we aren't very good at accepting change in our worship style. And I think about that, for this king. But, when he's king, he does what he thinks is, what he hopes is best for the people. I mean, that would be what I would hope for a king anyway. But he goes around when he's 16, taking down all of these false idols and everything, and he continues that until like the 12th year when he's been king. So he's 20 years old now, and it says that he reigns for 31 years. So, but he's gone all around through the land of Judah, and not only just in Jerusalem, but in all of the lands and to the different places and in the different cities in the communities, and taken these down and encouraged his people to follow God. And then he begins the restoration of the temple, and the money that has been collected goes to the workers who are cleaning and building and repairing, and to the priests, and to where it's supposed to go that way. And as they are cleaning and rebuilding, they come across the book of the law of Moses. And excuse me, the book of the law of Moses, was that the entire Pentateuch? I don't know for sure just what it was. We attribute the first 5 books of the Bible to Moses. And but they came across this book. The priests found it, and they gave it to one of King Josiah's secretaries, and the person named Shaphan, it says in the book. And he informs the king, the priest has found the book. He has given me a book. And then Shaphan read it aloud to the king. And when the king heard the words, he tore his clothes. And you think about that, this secretary, whatever, read it to the king. Does that mean that King Josiah probably didn't know how to read? But there wasn't that much, available for them. And it was just, the priests and, a select few people that could really read. And you think about that, even in, in the 1500s, I mean, a lot of people couldn't read. A lot of people, they signed their name with an X. They didn't know how to sign their name. So but anyway, the secretary read it to the king, and he realized the sin and the error, and it says, he tore his clothes. He humbled himself before God. It's a sign of realizing guilt. And so then he sends somebody, he says, go inquire of the Lord. And for those who are left concerning the words of this book, for the wrath of the Lord, it says, as it poured out upon us is great, because our ancestors did not keep the law of the Lord. And they go and they find this prophetess, Huldah, and she comes, and the words that she has, as you first read them, sound terrible. Josiah is a good king, following the laws of God and everything. But it says, thus I will bring disaster upon this place and its inhabitants. All the curses written in this book. But as to you, King of Judah, you sent me to inquire. This will not happen because you have been penitent and you have humbled yourself before God, and you have torn your clothes. I will gather you to your ancestors in the disaster. You will not see this disaster. So the words of the prophetess from God to King Josiah here are that, he won't see the disaster. So this is like in his 20th year of reign. So he's got, or in his 12th year of reign, rather, excuse me. So he's got some time yet to go, so he's leading and ruling fairly. And they a couple chapters ago, we read where the king had them observe the Passover. Well, and that was the only time that in Chronicles is the only time we see that one. Josiah, this king is the one that is more common and better known. But in this one, Josiah, he provided the sacrificial lamb for the Passover, and he invited all the people to come. And it was all of the people, it says, observed the Passover, which hadn't happened. We read a couple chapters ago about a different king that had observed Passover and encouraged them that way. But the person that's writing this book, wrote that one, and he writes this one, and he says that, Joseph kept the Passover, and it was everything was done properly with it. All the sacrifices and the priests were in their places, and the Levites did exactly what they were supposed to, and everything went right that way. And Josiah continued to reign for quite a few more years. But then another king comes against him. And in verse 20 of chapter 35, when Josiah had the temple set in order, then King Necho of Egypt came up to fight against these people, and Josiah went out against him. But this Egyptian king sent word to Josiah, I don't have a fight with you. Don't join this fight. You just go back and stay home, stay where you belong. I'm not coming against you. I'm not at war with you. And not only that, but this king of Egypt has God on his side. God is there, and Necho says, God has commanded me to hurry, so cease opposing God who is with me, so that he will not destroy you. But Josiah doesn't listen to that. He disguises himself to go out into the battle. And during the battle, he is wounded with an arrow. And they take him back, and Josiah dies from that wound, and the people mourn his death. He was a good king. But here, at the very end of everything, why did he go into this battle? Who knows? But he went into battle, and he died and was buried that way. And then the people, starting in chapter 36, the people took Jehoaz, his son, and made him king. And he was 23 years old, and he reigned 3 months. Whoops, this is a mistake. And the king of Egypt disposed him, this same King Necho who had told King Josiah, hey, stay out of this battle. And then a different son who was 25 began to reign, and he reigned 11 years, but was, maybe more of a puppet king. But again, he was one who did evil in the sight of the Lord. And this was the beginning of the fall of Jerusalem, that as he was doing the evil, and he reigned, it says, for 8 years, and then he died, and then his son took over as king, and then King Nebuchadnezzar brought him to Babylon and made a different person king over Judah. And then Zedekiah was made as king and reigned for 11 years and did again what was evil in the sight of the Lord. And as we come to the end of chapter 36, at the end of the book of Chronicles, the Chronicles of the Kings, we find the fall of Jerusalem, the destruction of Jerusalem, and the the scattering of the people of Israel. This is the diaspora, the dispersal of the Jews. And at the very end of the book, all the land of Judah had been laid to waste, and it lay desolate to fulfill 70 years. And then a kind of a switch in the very last few verses. First year of King Cyrus of Persia, the fulfillment of the word of the Lord spoken by Jeremiah stirred up into King Cyrus of Persia, and he sent this proclamation. Thus says King Cyrus, the Lord, the God of heaven, has given me all the kingdoms of the earth and charged me to build him a house in Jerusalem. So this king of Persia is now sanctioned by God to build the house in Jerusalem. And he says, whoever among you of his people, may the Lord be with him and let him go up. So this king of Persia then gives the Jewish people permission to return back to Jerusalem after the fall of Jerusalem. And so we saw in these last chapters how the words of the prophetess Huldah came true to Josiah. He didn't see the destruction and the punishment that came from God. And so the fall of Jerusalem, the dispersion of the Jews, was attributed to the wrath of God because of the faithlessness of the people. So, we as faithful people today need to keep our nation and our world in our prayers and pray to God for guidance for each and every one, and hope that we can spread the word of God so that all people will hear and know this God of the Israelites, this God who is slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love and grace. May he richly bless you today.